Hello and welcome to another edition of Agenda 2063 TV show, the only show in Ghana, the region continent, telling the unique and authentic stories about the AU, Africa, Agenda 2063, and its narrative. It's an important narrative that we need to tell. And even though we're going to spend the better part of this series also talking about aspects of the African Continental Free Trade Area, we're still going to be talking about Agenda 2063, its impacts, its fallouts, and so on. For which reason, today we have a highly trained specialist to help us understand and unpack that for us and its impact or at least COVID's impact on it. So we're going to take a break in a minute and we'll be back with our normal two segments, the APRM Watch and Here in East Africa. We'll be right back. In today's edition of APRM Watch, we want to remind audiences about the very important role the APRM plays in the context of the African Union and Agenda 2063, with some very important facts and reminders about the journey so far. First, out of the total 55 AU member states, the current number of member states participating in APRM is 40, so that's like 40 out of 55, that's 72%. APRM has just 3 years to get the other 28% to accede. The tag is hashtag towards universal accession 2023. We're hoping that within those 3 years, a lot more member states would have been able to join. Recent ones to accede earlier this year are Seychelles and Zimbabwe at the 32nd APRM Forum held in Addis in January this year. A second important point is that the APRM is and remains an autonomous entity within the African Union structures, expanding its mandate to cover tracking and monitoring of Agenda 2063 and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Thirdly, the head of the South African Institute of International Affairs, Elizabeth Sidiropol, said this in 2019, quote, Article 4H, Principle of Non-Indifference, born of abuses by elites of their own citizens, AU and APRM, is homegrown initiative creating mechanism to enable peer review around governance to deal with African challenges. So at the heart of that quotation, basically saying, it's talking about how the AU uses APRM to talk specifically about governance challenges and how we hope that 2023, a lot more work would have been done on that. And finally, in May 2019, communicators across the continent were brought together in South Africa to help form the Africa Peer Review Mechanism Communications Network. So there actually is one that has been running for the past year or so. There's an active WhatsApp group running. They're on Twitter, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook, and they're all helping to promote the APRM narrative so that everyone gets to understand that the APRM's mandate has expanded. It's huge. It's all about democratic governance, and it may even go to the extent of supplanting Afrobarometer. Who knows? Even though they've been doing some work with Afrobarometer, APRM is a homegrown initiative, and it is here to stay, and it is part of the Agenda 2063 family as well. So we will highly welcome and support that. thank you once again for this APRM update. We hope to give you some more exciting updates next week. And once again, I'm very happy to be bringing you another exciting edition of Here in East Africa. In today's edition of this segment, we're going to turn to Agenda 2063 inspired project, the African Integrated High-Speed Railway Network. Now, this is important because it remains a flagship project of Agenda 2063, and basically, it's aiming at facilitating the achievement of the AU vision of integrating Africa physically and economically. And now, in July 2020, the AUDA NEPAD, the African Union Development Agency, and NEPAD released a video, a 7-minute video capturing the conception, design, and implementation for the network. The video includes reports from across Africa dedicated to reviving railways, expansion, and modernization in the spirit of the Continental Rail Plan. You will know that in Ghana, a lot of work has also been done on our railways, and we highly welcome that as well. It's all part in fulfillment of this whole railway plan for the continent. The planned network will connect 16 landlocked countries in Africa to major seaports and neighboring countries, and it will establish interoperability of railways across different regions, create east-west, north-south land bridges, and interconnect African capitals. This will all help intra-African trade, including promote the African Continental Free Trade Area. Interestingly, 4 routes in East Africa are referenced in the video, suggesting, as always, how important East Africa remains a cog in the wheel of Africa's integration. Now, these routes are Dar es Salaam, Kigali routes, Mombasa, Nairobi, standard gauge routes, Addis Ababa, Djibouti routes, which apparently have been doing very well, and finally, Kampala, Kigali, Bujumbura routes. 4 major routes all in East Africa, which tells you how important that region is going to be over the next couple of years, weeks, and months as Africa begins its whole conversation on integrating through the African Continental Free Trade Area. One of the greatest objectives of the African Rail Network will be to connect capitals and economic hubs, thus enabling the benefits of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Once again, thank you for giving your time for this important update. We hope to have another very important update on Here in East Africa for you next week, educating ourselves about Agenda 2063. Thank you, Rabbi. Welcome back from the break. I'm very happy to have today in our studio specialists who will be able to help us demystify, unpack, and explain this whole conversation around Agenda 2063, but with the specialist aspect of education. Now we have in the studio Dr. Violet Makuku, who is quality assurance expert at Association of African Universities right here in Accra. And we're talking today a very important issue about whether COVID-19, out of so many other issues and problems, is going to derail the Agenda 2063 narrative. Of course, some will say, what is the Agenda 2063 narrative? And perhaps I'm not going to start at the definition of that, Dr. Makuku. Maybe you can tell us that, and then we can move on to why it could derail and possible solutions and so on and so forth.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this time. Yes, we have Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, and this is a brainchild of the African Union, and it looks at the continent and where we are going to be in the next 63 years and so on. But what is key are the 7 aspirations which are in the Africa that will be led by the youth and women, and they are there, the aspirations. But what we want to focus on, like what you have said, is the effect of the pandemic on Agenda 2063. We have those 7 aspirations, and they are linked to the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, but with a particular focus at our own continent. We all know that the COVID-19 outbreak has wreaked havoc throughout the world.
Yes.
Everything that is in Agenda 2063, when I look at it, at the core of it is education.
Yeah.
When you have educated people, you know that at least they've got the knowledge and skills of moving the continent forward. But what is happening, I think when I was checking on the news with Al Jazeera, they were talking of more than 28 million people or children who will not be able to access schooling.
Wow.
And what does that mean to us? But we also need to consider it in a broader perspective that other than COVID-19, if we look at East Africa, we have had the floods. We also had the swarms of locusts. So for me, I would say we could expand it to disasters. And here we are with our Agenda 2063. Will all these disasters stop us from moving?
No.
Thank you. So, because we can fall, pick ourselves, continue, fall again at some stage, pick ourselves and continue. But what I see as the most dangerous thing is you fall and you don't
Pick yourself up.
pick yourself up. Because the whole world has got its own fair share of challenges. And nobody is there to solve our challenges for us.
Yes.
We have the African Free Trade Area. We need to think about it.
Yes.
What can we do? Will we stop until COVID-19 goes?
We can't
When
stop.
will it go?
We can't stop. That's why we have to manage things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we need to manage things. But along with that, remember before the COVID-19 pandemic, we were also having now the talk of the fourth industrial revolution. And so for me, COVID-19, the locusts and the fourth industrial revolution, they are prompting us to do something as a continent.
Yeah.
To say, here is our continent, here are the 7 aspirations of where we want to see our continent going and how we want to revamp and improve our continent. But like I said earlier, everything is hinged on education. But when you also look at higher education, that's where we are now churning out those graduates with the knowledge and skills to drive the industry. But we need to take also the whole entrepreneurial mindset in it. What does it mean to us? Your first question was, what is the Agenda 2063 and what does it do? So it's prompting me to say, this Agenda 2063, we need to take it into the classroom.
Yes.
We need to take it into the university. We need to take it into the colleges so that the people in Africa from tender ages understand that we have this Agenda 2063 and we need to accomplish the aspirations.
It's been running for the past 7 years. 2013 was when it was, let's say, conceptualized by
Yes.
Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and her team at the AU Commission.
Yes.
So some will say it's 7 years too late. Why is it a pandemic has now come to compel us to start doing an education on it when we should have started a long time ago?
Yes, I think you are just bringing another important dimension. You know, COVID-19 has been highly devastating.
Yes.
But there are certain things which we have also seen as positive being brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, countries closed their borders.
Yes.
When they closed their borders, it was each nation for itself.
Yes.
And you know, people used to have the interactions with Europe, the United States, and Australia for these things. But for the very first time, we saw African universities doing these researches on how to develop ventilators because they now knew they couldn't get them from anywhere.
Yes.
We saw the sanitizers and everything else, researches around COVID-19. And so what it tells me is that Africa is also capable of solving its own problems because we say necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes.
In the absence of anything else to assist, what do?
Yeah.
You need to find your way. You need to find your path. So my word would be, let's just continue with the momentum. And again, this is another grand opportunity to look back and say, what did we do with the Agenda 2063, the Africa we want? What can we do under the circumstances? So we had our African Free Trade Area. I think it was meant to start operating in August. And then we move maybe September or 2021. But I think we have seen that in our different countries, what we have not closed borders to is trade.
Yes.
Because I think all the president says we will continue to have food, drugs, and these other things coming through cargo, air, and also through our borders. So the African Free Trade Area should be live.
Yes.
We have the protocols, and still life has to go on. What we need to do is to make sure we institute the protocols. And then we start having this trade gradually taking shape. We are the ones to make sure it takes shape. So suppose we go until end of 2021 with the pandemic. So we will derail everything.
It shouldn't be like that because at the end of the day, Agenda 2063 is also talking about or harping to the fact that the AU as a global player.
Yes.
So if the AU is going to serve as a global player, we've seen the efforts of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and how it has galvanized, African countries around COVID, looking for testing, tracing, and so on and so forth. Surely that should remind us that the AU is kind of building some kind of solidarity, some kind of support to be able to do things.
Yes.
Entrepreneurship is one aspect. I mean, you've seen a lot of countries now doing their own face shields, their own hand sanitizers.
Yes.
I think Food and Drugs Authority the other day just held a webinar on, the standards that you need for the hand sanitizers and so on. So it means that Africa is looking within.
Yes.
But still, is it too late playing catch up to the Agenda 2063 narrative? Because like I said, it's been a while. Some will say, well, typical of the AU, they always respond so late.
Yes.
They can't say that of the Africa CDC, thankfully, but the other things. And maybe Agenda 2063, some may say, well, it's just one of those things that, one of those plans that, the AU has always had and, no one is really implementing.
Yes, so from what you are saying, I already see that there's one problem.
Yeah.
What is African Union?
Yeah.
Who is African Union?
Yeah.
Isn't it made by the African countries?
Yes.
African governments,
yes,
who represent the African people?
Yes.
So why should I push it to you? Why can't we do it together?
Yes.
So we all have a role to play in Agenda 2063 and realize the goals that have been set in there. So that's one major problem we need to solve. Okay. But going forward, like what I've said, 2013 years, 7 years down the line, yes. So if we are all part and parcel of solving the problem, it means if I take, for example, higher education, we have, again, the baby for the African Union, which is the Continental Education Strategy for Africa. We take the Continental Education Strategy for Africa and we make sure we blend it with the Agenda 2063. And what it simply tells me is that when we are looking at every level and sector of education, from the lowest level to the highest level, we need to take aspects of the Agenda 2063 and inculcate them in the curriculum.
Yes.
Or formulate new curricula, which are blended with this entrepreneurship. Because I think we have big issues of interpretations and definitions. Yes, if I say entrepreneurship, somebody quickly thinks of doing a business, but it's much more than that. Saving our communities, it's part of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So people would need to have these engraved in the curricula at all levels, from kindergarten going up to university level. University level, I said continental education strategy for Africa is also for everyone. So how does it pave a way? How does it inform us of building new degree programs, constructing new courses and designing new courses with new content, and also blending old content with new content? And again, it's an opportunity to throw away obsolete content and look for that which is relevant. Because I want to stress something here, that the continental education strategy for Africa is meant for all of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and I think on that note, we're going to take a break, and when we return, we'll have you explain a little bit briefly what the CESA is about, the Continental Education Strategy, and how that links to Agenda 2063's education. We'll take a break, we'll be right back.
Launch your career at the highest ranked private institution in Uganda, E.K University. Learn without distraction in the most conducive and serene environment, and make the most out of every minute. Master technology with the widest spectrum of science and engineering programs. Learn the most innovative methods for sustainable agriculture and renewable energy. Choose between a variety of sports at our vast Luwero complex. Turn your time and money into a degree that makes a difference, and begin work in a career that inspires you. Apply online at admissions.ndu.ac.ug. E.K University. Come experience a holistic approach to learning.
Welcome back from the break. You're still watching Agenda 2063 TV show, where we tell authentic and important stories about the AU institutions, and especially Agenda 2063. We still have in the studio Dr. Violet Makuku, quality assurance expert, to help us understand the developments around Agenda 2063, education, the impact of coronavirus or COVID, and whether that will derail or otherwise the Agenda 2063 narrative that we have come to appreciate. So you're talking just before the break a bit about the Continental Education Strategy. Maybe you can help viewers and listeners unpack that a little for those who don't understand why the AU needs a Continental Education Strategy. When all member states already have their education systems, why do we need a continental one at all?
Yes, so this one has got some very, very important key points. The key points are revitalizing the education system for our continent, and quality focus on research, teaching and learning, as well as community engagement. And when we look at the purpose of education in general is to solve the political, socio-economic challenges. And as we are talking of COVID-19, it's a pandemic that is affecting the social lives of people. People have lost their jobs. People have lost direction. And here we are also with our Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. So we question, should we really go to also lose focus of it?
Yes.
Maybe we need to think of innovative ways of taking it on board through research, through teaching and learning, and also through community engagement, working together with the communities and industry, so that we can realize Agenda 2063 goals.
It's important. It's very interesting that you talk about community engagement, because an education strategy that talks about bringing in the community, that's quite unusual. You would have thought the education would be specific only to what the Ministry of Education and member states would talk about, but why does it see the value of community engagement as part of an important cog in the wheel?
Yes, because I think that's one mistake which institutions or academic institutions make. In most cases, they devote like less time, 10%, 5% of the time to community engagement and industry linkages. But if you check it again, this then create gaps.
Yes.
If we are not engaging with the community, like when I look at the Association of African Universities in particular, it is the implementing arm of the African Union Commission in terms of higher education matters.
Yes.
And so we should extend that to the communities. We work with higher education, but then we need also to continue pushing them to go and work with the communities. As they work with the communities, two things are happening. The students that they are teaching are learning what happens in the real communities. They are learning to work with the communities. And at the same time, they are giving knowledge and skills again to the communities that they are working with.
Yeah.
Imagine if it is an academic project that is being undertaken by university staff and students, maybe to do with a promotion of the African free trade area. Can you imagine the impact?
Yes.
It would be highly impactful because even when we talk about it and the COVID-19, is everybody now aware of this free trade area? Or we still have work to do?
We have work to do.
You see now, and that can only be done successfully through engaging the communities, through engaging with industry. Because industry is going to help us with, look at the terrain now. The new digital norm is dictating something different. So please, academic institutions, as you train your staff, we have new pieces of equipment we are working with. So get that and teach your students. Bring them here, and we also show them and train them during internship how to do it. And so it's a whole lot of collaboration and teamwork that really needs to go into it in order to come up with practical solutions and practical results in our continent. Otherwise, we keep on talking theory, and it will end us nowhere.
And I like that last point you've made, because I think it goes back very strongly to something that we had discussed in the planning for the show, which is about the so-called new normal.
Yes.
This that everyone has been talking about. Okay, this new normal has involved people being at home, needing to buy data where they wouldn't have bought data, that much amount to be able to, speak, to help participate in webinars and all these other things. So a lot of time is spent online.
Yeah.
What does that mean, or what does it portend for posterity, for the new generation of graduates who are up and coming, who need to embrace this new normal? What in your view do they need? What kind of skills do they need?
Yes.
To be able to adapt into this new environment?
Thank you very much. Now, you bring in the issue of linking up with what I've said, that we may need to create new programs. We need to also design some new courses, and we may need to add on new content in order to make sure we reduce this gap which has been created. Because what is the new normal? It's seemingly moving toward digital. And by the time they graduate, where they are going to work, almost everything they are working with is digitized.
It's virtual.
Right.
So where?
And so they need the ICT skills. But it's a mistake to limit it only to ICT skills. This time around, they need these skills of fast thinking, highly adaptive, to circumstances, to say anytime anything can change. And so they need to be fast thinkers who can adapt to new environments quickly,
Yes.
innovators, to
Okay.
say this is the scenario that we have now. Can we just stop looking at what is happening and take the wait and see stance? If you take the wait and see stance, then what will eventually happen? So they need to be innovative, creative, and highly responsive, and to take a leadership, to say, I want to initiate this thing, and I will bring on board people, no matter the age, the position at the workplace, gender, and any other parameters that you could think of. This time around, those things should not really matter, but we are looking for these skills which can continue to move life.
Yes.
And to move us to sustainability, other than taking a wait and see stance. So with development and inculcation of those skills into the current students who will be the future employers and employees, we need to make sure these things are in the curriculum.
In reflecting of all that you have said about education and curriculum, what can, in your view, can we do to fast track this education? Because although shows like this exist, it would probably be fast tracked if it existed in every country. If there were Agenda 2063 in Nigeria, in Liberia, etc. Sadly, we know that that's not going to happen anytime soon. So what then do people need to do practically to make sure that we can fast track this kind of education? Because already the curricula has been set. Schools, have been having exams. We know with WAC and so on and so forth. In the next year or two, is there anything in that that the AU has planned to look concretely about education, maybe together with UNESCO, who knows, on how we can carry this message forward on Agenda 2063?
Yes, like what I'm saying that the ball is in everybody's court.
Yes.
The moment we leave it to African Union alone, then we are missing the whole point.
Okay.
But what we need are strong collaborations. If we are coming on board with UNESCO, with United Nations, with our African Union, Association of African Universities, the ministries in different African countries, the vice chancellors, all the key stakeholders, all hands on deck is what we need right now in order to realize these goals which we have been set for the Agenda 2063. And for your own information, nobody set those goals for us. It's us as Africans who set those goals, and we need to make sure that we implement them. And we should not push them in everybody's court and leave ourselves. We should be in it together.
Okay.
And then in that regard, then it's we need to find some dissemination strategies.
Yes.
Because we need to have it getting to national levels, to the grassroots.
Yes.
And to the nations, the responsible ministries of education. But are they the only ones that can help us with dissemination?
Yeah.
No, we also have ministries of youth, ministries of gender, and these other ministries of information through radios and televisions and so on. And then this time around, the expenses have been drastically reduced because of the webinars. Webinars can be set on Zoom, on Adobe Connect or Microsoft Teams, on all these platforms that have been created. So why can't we spearhead each one in their corner? Spearhead the intake and uptake, the education and awareness, so that it gets and filters into everybody and we begin to act. But like I've said, it's through education. An educated nation is a nation which is just proactive and a moving nation. So how can we also now make sure that we continue with education and we leverage on what we have, because some people still are saying we have these lockdowns and so on. How are we going to make sure we resolve the issue of those who no longer have access at this time?
Yes,
Yeah?
especially data. Those who have access to the internet, there's still a lot of people who don't have, and it's scattered across member states. So clearly, the dissemination, as you are saying, and the education is all of us. We need to all of us do that in our different corners. And I think what you're trying to say also is that Corona is just but one of many things that has come to derail.
That's true.
Therefore, we need to pick ourselves up and move forward.
Yes.
At least for those of you viewers who have been following Agenda 2063 for the past couple of weeks and so on, just know that we always welcome feedback. So we'd love to hear from you also, your comments and questions.
Yes.
And especially, also we have someone from AAU TV as an expert who can help us better understand the educational aspects and the continental education strategy for Africa as well, because it's very underpopularized. We don't talk enough about it.
Yes.
But we hope that shows like this will be able to help, unpack that strategy so that it is linked to the Agenda 2063 conversation. You will know that Agenda 2063, for example, is going to be a major part of the AU as a global player over the next couple of years. And therefore, having the requisite skills to be able to understand, buy into that Agenda 2063 is so important. What skills will we need to be able to, for the new graduate to be able to appreciate and understand what Agenda 2063 has come to do for Africans? Were it not for Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, who knows? Maybe Africa CDC may not have been have not been so impelled to, look for African-owned solutions, and maybe had just gone to donors. Who knows? But the point is, Africa is capable of managing its own affairs, and Agenda 2063 is a very, very, very important cog in that wheel of appreciating Agenda 2063. That's why having Dr. Violet Makuku here to help us understand the educational aspects is so important. So, Dr. Makuku, in your view, I've talked about this whole thing about the fact that, whilst we have talked about derailment, that really shouldn't be a problem because other man-made things, disasters have come and so on and so forth. In your view, what do we, not necessarily member states or even association or African universities, but what, as individuals, in your view, those of us who are living through this pandemic, to be able to tell it to our children, grandchildren, whatever else, what in your view do we need to quickly do to make sure that we keep on track with the Agenda 2063, we keep it in mind that we're always on that goal?
Yes, I think you have brought in a very good dimension. So I think we talk of informal education.
Okay.
Yes. This time around, because of the ICT, Internet of Things and so on, people in most cases do not even have quality time, maybe husband and wife with their children and their relatives and what. Everybody else is glued on their phone.
On the smartphone.
But we may need to think twice of taking part of those opportunities to say, when we are relaxed, when we are with our children, or when we are just driving from point A to point B, can't I talk briefly about Agenda 2063? And by the time I educate my child, maybe next time he or she will have the friends and these relatives who came to see us today, when they also go, they will talk about it. And even with our WhatsApp groups and social media, why are we not sharing the way we would share all these jokes and these gifts that we always share? In the same manner, I think we can take the opportunity to also share. I remember one time I tweeted or Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, and I picked the aspiration for the Africa that is going to be led by its youth and women.
Oh, okay.
And then when I
Okay.
go to my LinkedIn, I'm also posting a continental education strategy for Africa, the document. I post Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, the document. And my followers will now go on to check what is this Agenda 2063.
Yes, that's
and
a good
so,
point.
that's what we should do.
Yes.
We use everything that is available for information dissemination
Yes.
and for education and awareness. Very, very key. But you find sometimes it depends on the way we conceive things, and our perceptions have got a lot to do with our daily operations.
Okay.
So we need to be open-minded and also to make sure that we scout and follow opportunities, not only about Agenda 2063, but about life in general.
Yes.
And what I say is that we always need to be positive. If we fall, we need to pick ourselves up and continue. That's it. Because if you don't, also realize that your problems are contextual.
Yes.
And you may need homegrown solutions. When you also look for other solutions, you may also get them at a cost. So all those things are implications to how we are going to continue promoting Agenda 2063, it being known, and also moving towards the practical steps to make sure that people are doing what helps to get to the goals as they are set.
So basically, I think in wrapping up, your message is clear, that it starts with us, the education.
Yes.
As to whether the thing has derailed or otherwise is moot. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that it is here. We are managing it.
Yes.
How do we manage it? We manage it by still continuing to tell our own stories.
Yes.
Still, whispering it to our, family members, to our friends, and so on, up until everyone gets to the point. Whilst we, of course, have shows like this, which will help further disseminate it.
Yes.
So I think your point is well made and very sound. So all hope is not lost.
Yeah, it's
frankly,
not lost.
at all.
Websites too
Yes.
can be used,
Yes.
and emails too. In
Yes.
our communities, like us in higher education, we disseminate it to universities, to vice chancellors, to colleges, to any means that is available to everybody can be used.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much. I believe that you have ended on a very important note, which is a positive one, to say that all hope is not lost as far as the Agenda 2063 narrative is concerned.
Yes.
We started off with an understanding that one of the casualties of the Agenda 2063 narrative was the African Continental Free Trade Area itself, which did not start in July, but now has been postponed to 2021. Irrespective of that, trading is still going on, and even in regions like COMESA, the Common Market for East and Southern Africa, I think last week or so they started talking about digital trade. They're doing things on digital trade. So trading is still continuing at a digital level, and the whole world is going digital, even though sometimes the webinars and Zoom and Google Meets can be, some way, and sometimes it can be inundating. This is the future, and so we need to find ways to adapt to it, and also remember that Agenda 2063 is not going to go away. The 7 aspirations are all part of and parcel of what will make the AU be referenced sometime in the future, if it isn't already, as a global player, because it is a global player. No matter how much we feel with the criticism that we have of the AU has come very far. It has challenges, it is flawed, and so on and so forth. Popularization is needed, but we believe that shows like this and having experts like Dr. Makuku all help, tell our story of where Agenda 2063 needs to be and needs to go. So with that, I just want to say thank you very, very much for taking time out of your schedule to watch us and also try to understand this. As always, if you have comments and questions, free to drop it on the line. And we hope to have a very interesting conversation with you and a new topic next week. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.